Hello, today we're going to talk about mass media and public opinion. This PowerPoint goes with Chapter 8 in your textbook. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in slideshow mode, get us full screen. Okay, first we're going to begin with the formation of public opinion. It's good to know what public opinion is. Public opinion are those attitudes held by a significant number of people on the matters of government and politics. This includes only those views that relate to public affairs, and a public view must be expressed. How are public opinions formed? The first place that we see public opinion being formed is within the family. Children first see the political world through their family's eyes. If I could ask for a show of hands, I'm sure that the majority of you would agree that you have the same political slant or view on the world as your parents have. You either see the world through a right-leaning eyes, through left-leaning eyes, or ambivalent, meaning that you don't really have a political stance. The next place that we start to see public opinions being formed is in school. Okay, the first real break from your family influence, it begins at the school age. When you go to school, you begin to get training for citizenship, how to get along with the world, how to get along in the public, and you also get a healthy dose of informal learning. And this is how you get along with differing individuals. This is the first time where you're interacting for long periods of time with individuals who are not of blood relation to you, and you pick up a lot of things from your friends, and that would be where your informal learning comes from. Continuing with how public opinions are formed. The mass media, newspapers, radio, internet, television do play a big role in helping shape your public opinion. If you watch a particular internet, or if you read a particular internet blog religiously, or you watch a particular cable news show, you're going to find that all of these have political slants, whether that be a right-leaning slant such as Fox News or a left-leaning slant like MSNBC, and it will help to shape your public opinions. You're going to view things as the media that you're taking in views things. The textbook tells us that TV is the biggest means of influence on your public opinion, but I would venture to say that that's changing before our eyes, and that the World Wide Web, or the Internet, is becoming the biggest influence on public opinion today. As I mentioned before, each TV broadcast or Internet blog that you may read, or newspaper, or even magazine, has a political slant or a bias, and that definitely influences the public opinion that you are forming. Your peer groups, or the people whom you associate with regularly, including your friends, classmates, neighbors, co-workers, even opinion leaders that you might pay attention to on TV or on the web, they do have an influence, a strong influence on your public opinion. Historical events also play a key role in your public opinion. For example, here on this slide we have a picture, of course, of the iconic scene from 9/11. This is the historical event that is going to define your and my lifetime. But if you think back over history, you have events such as the Great Depression that shaped your great-grandparents, your grandparents, my grandparents' lives growing up. And World War II, these big historical iconic events that people remember exactly what they were doing, where they were when these events happened. It tends to have an effect on how they see the world and how they see America's interactions with other countries from around the world. So how do we measure public opinion? Well, the easiest way to measure public opinion is through an election. And sometimes when we have an election, let me get back here, excuse me. If you have a one-sided election, a one-sided victory for a candidate, sometimes they call that a mandate. And that means that the public is 100% behind their opinion, their views, and how they want to see things done, and they normally proceed in that manner. The media does help to measure public opinion. They say that the media generally mirrors public opinion. Is that true today? I have on here as a question. That is questionable because of the prevalence of the cable news broadcast. The cable news broadcast is definitely a slanted game. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that MSNBC is completely in favor of left politics, Democratic, liberal-leaning politics. There is absolutely no doubt that Fox News is in favor of right-leaning or Republican politics. So I don't know if this is necessarily a mirror of public opinion in general or a mirror of one particular flavor of public opinion, if you will. Your personal contacts, politicians can gain a measure on what the public is thinking if they go out and talk to people. Put some shoe leather to the pavement and knock on doors, shake hands, talk to people, and figure out what's going down. Now, a more scientific way of measuring public opinion is through polling. There are all kinds of public opinion polls, and they do tend to be the best method for measuring public opinion. Some public opinion polls are better than others. For example, straw polls tend to be a bit simplistic and not very reliable. They are simply asking a large group of people the same question. The problem with this is there's not a whole lot of thinking behind, okay, who are we going to ask? It might be something as simple as standing outside of a movie theater because a lot of people are in there and going to be coming out, and asking them the same question. What do you think about abortion? Or what do you think about gun control? And there's no thought process going into who's in that movie theater. And why are you asking that group? So there's nothing really scientific about it, and sometimes the numbers can be skewed as a result of that. However, you can scientifically poll, and think of the scientific method from your biology class, a group of people. First, you start off by defining your universe. This is the population that your poll aims to measure. If you want to ask a question related to going to college, your universe would probably best be defined as a group of seniors in a high school somewhere. Okay, so make that population fit what your question is, so it's more relevant and more accurate. You have to construct a sample, okay, determining how you're going to collect the data. Today, internet, like email responses, polls, survey monkeys, and phone calls would be your most often, I believe, used methods of collecting the data. Then you have to prepare valid questions. Ask questions that answer and point you in the direction of data that's going to give you an answer one way or another on the question that you're trying to get after. And then you have to go out and have your interview, okay? Go out and have your interview with the people, and then analyze your report and findings. So there's steps, there's a method to it, and there's some thought behind who you're going to ask, what you're going to ask, and what the goal of the poll is. So this is a much more accurate and preferred method for measuring public opinion. So what role does the mass media play on forming public opinion? Well, a medium is a means of communication, and it transmits some kind of information. So the media is a form of this. It's a means of communication. There are 4 major mass media outlets. You have television, newspapers, the radio, and magazines. Today I would also add the internet. I would put that on there because the internet is coming on strong, and people are definitely getting a lot of things from there. We've begun to see people not getting cable television, but rather watching television through providers like Hulu on their internet and their internet TVs. And it begs the question, as the cell phone began to shrink in size and grow in popularity, the house phone became obsolete. I bet most of you watching this video don't have a house phone anymore, but multiple people in your house have cell phones. Will that someday be the case with TV? Will people be watching the internet or watching TV through the internet rather than watching TV via your cable news broadcast on your television? Well, according to the textbook, there's at least one television per household, and that's for 98% of the population. So television does, and this is why it gets credit as still being the #1 means of spreading information and public opinion. The television replaced newspapers as the principal source of political information in the 1960s, and that coincided with the Kennedy-Nixon debates and when television started to take more of a role in public life. When we look at newspapers, the very first newspaper in the United States is the Boston Newsletter in 1704. Newspapers are great sources of information because they're able to cover stories in greater depth than television. Television will give you 30 to 60 to maybe maximum 90-second snippets, whereas a newspaper article can go in depth, in detail, and pretty much tell you what's going on and give you the whole information instead of just a sound bite. The first radio station in the country was KDKA in Pittsburgh. Radio peaks in the 30s and 40s when the average American listened to about 20 hours of radio a week. Today, talk radio still stands and exists as a source of public opinion and communication of information about politics for many Americans. Magazines are pretty much in the same boat as the newspaper. They're slowly dwindling in importance with the internet, but we do still have political magazines. Some of the first are listed here. Magazines like Times, Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report definitely have a slant, and they all have a purpose. They are transmitting information about public opinions, public affairs, and some sort of political life. The media can help focus and set a public agenda. They can focus public attention on public matters. Some would even say cynically that they can draw the public's attention away from something that would be important as well. They're not necessarily to tell you what to think about, or to think, but what to think about. There's a big difference in propagating a belief and then also asking a question and trying to generate and get people to think about something. And I think that's the big difference you see between traditional news broadcasts. Think of Walter Cronkite. If you don't know who I'm speaking about, YouTube, Walter Cronkite, and you'll see he was the main newscaster in the 60s and 70s on the regular evening news. Those guys like Cronkite, Brokaw in the early days, Peter Jennings, they delivered the news. Guys today like Chris Matthews or Sean Hannity or Bill O'Reilly, there are times where I think they're telling you what to think, but that's the difference between cable news and your regular news broadcast on the lower channels. And in electoral politics, television and the internet allows candidates to go directly to the people, and this will allow a small-time candidate, somebody who might not have all the money and power and backing behind them, to go deep into elections and in some cases win elections because they can take their message directly to people. Take Ron Paul, for example. Ron Paul's campaign was absolutely a grassroots campaign that grew from people spreading the word, internet messages, Facebook, whatever that case may be. It allowed the message to go directly to people, and it didn't matter that he had a fraction of the money of some of the candidates that he was competing against. So that's it for this PowerPoint. Hope you enjoyed it. If you need to go back and look at it in a slower pace, you can do that. The file is located in Blackboard. Thank you.